My brother forged our father's signature to steal the family vineyard. 7 months after our father's stroke left him unable to speak clearly, my brother filed paperwork transferring sole ownership of our family's 40-year-old vineyard into his own name, using a signature our father physically could not have written. Our father, Emrys, planted the first rows of Hollowbrook Vineyard the year I was born, on 11 acres of hillside land his own father had left him, land that had grown nothing but scrubgrass and stubborn rock for as long as anyone in the family could remember. He had no formal training in winemaking when he started, just a stubborn conviction that the particular limestone under that hillside would someday produce something worth drinking, and he spent the first decade making wine nobody wanted to buy, learning through failure after failure, refusing every piece of advice from more experienced neighbors who told him, kindly, that he was wasting his life on soil that would never cooperate. He proved them wrong eventually, the way stubborn people sometimes do. By the time I was in high school, Hollowbrook's small batch Riesling had won a regional award that put the vineyard on maps it had never appeared on before. And by the time I finished college, my father had built something real out of 11 rocky acres and 2 decades of refusing to quit. I grew up in those rows the way some kids grow up on a farm or in a family restaurant kitchen, pruning in late winter with fingers so cold I couldn't feel them, hand harvesting in the fall alongside seasonal workers my father treated like family, learning to taste a grape off the vine and know, with something between instinct and calculation, whether it needed another week or was ready now. My older brother Thaddeus grew up in those same rows, technically, though his relationship to the vineyard was always more complicated than mine. He loved the land, loved our father, but never took to the actual work the way I did, found the early mornings tedious, the physical labor uninteresting, gravitated instead toward the business side of things once he was old enough, handling the vineyard's finances and distributor relationships, while I stayed hands-on with the actual growing and winemaking, a division of labor that had worked, more or less peacefully, for almost 15 years. Our father structured the vineyard's ownership, years before his stroke, in a way meant to reflect that division fairly, a family trust holding the land and the business itself, with Thaddeus and me named as equal co-trustees and eventual equal beneficiaries, with our father retaining primary control as long as he was alive and capable of exercising it. His attorney at the time, a careful older man named Osric Whitfield who'd handled our family's legal matters for decades, told me once, at a holiday dinner years before any of this happened, that Emrys had specifically wanted the trust structured to prevent exactly the kind of dispute that so often tears family businesses apart after a founder dies or becomes incapacitated. No single point of control, no ambiguity about who inherited what, everything spelled out clearly enough that neither of his children would ever have to guess at his wishes or fight over interpretation. My father's stroke happened on a Tuesday morning in early autumn, right in the middle of harvest, the worst possible timing for a vineyard that depended entirely on decisions made correctly and quickly during those few critical weeks. I found him myself, collapsed in the equipment shed where he'd gone to check on a tractor part, and I remember the specific, awful quality of those first minutes waiting for the ambulance, kneeling beside him in the dirt where he'd spent his entire adult life, watching him try and fail